Maya Chen hurried down the steps of the subway station, her breath turning into faint clouds in the chilly November air. At 28, she had perfected the art of being on time. Even with New York City's famously unpredictable transit system, her dark hair was neatly tied back in a practical bun, and her well-worn messenger bag carried everything she'd need for her shift at the community health clinic where she worked as a nurse. The morning had started like any other, the alarm blaring at 5:30, a quick breakfast, and a final check to make sure she'd packed her lunch to save a few dollars. But somewhere between leaving her apartment and reaching the subway, her usual routine had been shaken. A call from her younger sister Lisa brought troubling news about their mother Margaret's worsening arthritis. The conversation had left Maya distracted, her mind tangled in worry over medical bills they simply couldn't cover. Lost in thought, she barely noticed herself stepping onto the train. It wasn't until 3 stops later, when an unfamiliar station name echoed over the loudspeaker, that she realized her error. She had boarded the downtown 6 train instead of her usual uptown 4. Letting out a sigh, Maya resolved to get off at the next station to fix her route. Though it was clear she would now be late, Grand Central Station was its usual blur of activity. Business people clutching their coffee cups, tourists peering at maps, and seasoned New Yorkers weaving through the crowd with effortless indifference. As Maya headed toward the correct platform, a disturbance near a bench caught her eye. An elderly man had collapsed onto the floor. His worn backpack and a small shopping bag had spilled their contents across the floor around him. But what truly caught Maya's attention wasn't just the fall itself. After all, accidents weren't uncommon in the subway. It was the reaction of the people nearby that struck her most. People glanced at the man, then quickly looked away, as if deliberately, creating a bubble of indifference around him. A few even stepped wider, purposefully avoiding his scattered things. The man's appearance likely explained their response. His clothes were layered and tattered, his gray beard unkempt. To the rushing commuters, he was just another homeless man, perhaps drunk, perhaps mentally ill, someone to steer clear of, not someone to help. Maya's nursing instincts pushed aside any worry about being late. She stepped toward him and knelt beside him. "Sir, can you hear me? I'm a nurse," she said clearly, her eyes quickly and professionally assessing him. The man's eyes fluttered open, clear brown eyes that seemed surprisingly alert despite his disheveled state. "I'm fine," he mumbled, trying to sit up. Just felt dizzy for a moment. Maya gently supported his back. "Let's not rush. When was the last time you ate?" The man hesitated, and in that brief pause, Maya had her answer. Without another word, she reached into her bag and pulled out the sandwich she had packed for lunch. "Here, your blood sugar might be low." "I can't take your lunch," he protested weakly. "I insist. I'd much rather share my lunch than see you pass out again." Maya's tone was kind but firm, the same tone she used with stubborn patients at the clinic. The man slowly began to eat. Meanwhile, Maya quietly gathered his scattered belongings. Among them, she noticed a worn notebook filled with precise sketches of buildings and bridges, with mathematical notes scribbled in the margins, not what she expected from someone living on the streets. "You're an architect?" she asked gently. The man looked up, surprised by her interest. "Once in another lifetime," he said softly. "These are beautiful," Maya said sincerely. "You have real talent." Something about her genuine praise seemed to touch him. "Robert," he said after a moment. "My name's Robert Miller." "Maya Chen, it's good to meet you, Robert. Though I wish it were under better circumstances." By now, some color had returned to Robert's face. Maya helped him over to the bench, fully aware that she was now running quite late for her shift. She quickly called the clinic to explain, relieved that her supervisor understood why she couldn't walk away from someone in medical need. As they sat together, waiting for Robert to feel strong enough to continue on, he began to speak, slowly and thoughtfully, about his life. He had indeed once been an architect, specializing in sustainable public buildings. But a series of personal tragedies, his wife's death from cancer, a bitter fallout with his business partner, and a painful period of depression had brought him to where he was now. "I've been living simply," trying to figure things out. He explained, choosing his words carefully. Sometimes the best way to understand the world is to step outside of where you usually stand in it. There was a dignity in the way Robert spoke, a depth that made Maya truly see beyond his outward appearance. Before she knew it, she was sharing as well about her work at the clinic and about her mother's health struggles and her sister Lisa's determination to finish nursing school, while also helping care for their mother. Health care shouldn't be a luxury, Maya said, a rare edge creeping into her voice. The clinic where I work helps people without insurance, but we're always short on staff, short on supplies, short on funding. Robert listened closely, asking thoughtful questions about the challenges the clinic faced. When he felt steady enough to stand, Maya insisted on walking him to a nearby diner so he could sit properly and have a real meal. She paid for his food using the money she had set aside for coffee that week. Brushing off his protests, "Just promise me you'll look after yourself," she said as they parted ways, "and maybe keep sketching those beautiful buildings. You've given me a lot to think about, Maya Chen," Robert replied, his gaze meeting hers with unexpected intensity. "Thank you for seeing a person where others saw a problem." 2 weeks passed, and that encounter faded into the background of Maya's busy life. There was so much to handle. Her mother, Margaret, needed more therapy. Lisa was struggling through her final exams, and the clinic faced yet another painful budget cut. On a particularly tough Friday, Maya's supervisor called her into the office. Bracing herself, Maya assumed it would be another conversation about reduced hours or funding struggles. But to her surprise, her supervisor looked uncharacteristically cheerful. "Maya, we've received an anonymous donation. A big one, specifically for essential supplies and staff salaries." Maya blinked, startled. "That's incredible. How big a donation to $1 million?" The figure was so far beyond anything Maya could have imagined that she actually laughed, convinced she'd misheard. "I'm sorry. How much?" "$2 million. And that's not all. The donor is setting up a foundation to support clinics like ours across the city. They've requested you serve on the advisory board. It's a paid, part-time position, so you can continue your nursing work." Maya sat down, her legs suddenly feeling weak. There must be some mistake. Why would anyone ask for me? Her supervisor handed her an envelope. This came with the donation. Maybe it explains. With trembling fingers, Maya opened it. Inside was a familiar sketch, a building design full of natural light and green spaces. Below it were the words, "For seeing the person, not the circumstances. Robert Miller, the Miller Foundation." The note included an address in the financial district and an invitation to meet. The next day, Maya found herself in a sleek office building. She was ushered into a modern space filled with architectural models and awards for sustainable design. And there stood Robert, clean-shaven, well-dressed, but with the same thoughtful eyes that had thanked her in that subway station. "I'm not what you expected," he said, recognizing the confusion on her face. "You're not homeless." Maya managed, struggling to reconcile this polished professional with the man she had helped. Robert gestured for her to sit. "No, I'm not. But everything else I told you is true. I was an architect. I did lose my wife. I did step away from my former life." He explained how, after recovering from his depression, he had become deeply troubled by how his wealth had isolated him from the real struggles people faced. 6 months earlier, he had begun a personal experiment, living at times as if homeless, with only his sketchbook and essentials, to observe how society treated those without privilege. "In all that time, people looked right through me," Robert said quietly, "until you didn't just help me, you saw me, you shared your lunch, spoke with me, treated me like someone who mattered, even when you thought I had nothing to give back." Maya shook her head, still absorbing it all. "Anyone would have done the same." "That's just it, Maya. They wouldn't have." That day made me realize funding buildings and programs isn't enough. If we don't change how people see each other, nothing truly changes. Robert outlined his foundation's vision, not just providing resources for health care, but training compassionate providers and building systems that centered on dignity. He wanted Maya's insight, her experience, her unwavering belief that everyone deserved care. no matter their situation. I don't know anything about running a foundation, Maya admitted, and I don't know what it's like to worry about choosing between medicine and food, Robert replied. That's why we need both perspectives. In the months that followed, Maya continued nursing while helping shape the Miller Foundation's work. The clinic expanded its services. A new program helped families like Maya's navigate care for elderly parents. Lisa received a full scholarship to complete nursing school, with a guaranteed job waiting for her. Maya and Robert developed a friendship built on mutual respect and a shared purpose. Their backgrounds couldn't have been more different, but together they worked toward a more compassionate world. One evening, as they reviewed plans for a new community health center, Maya glanced up. You could have just donated the money. You didn't have to involve me. Why didn't you? Robert considered her question. Because that day in the subway, I wasn't looking for someone to help me. I was looking for someone to remind me why help matters. You took the wrong train, but found exactly the right way to be human. Maya smiled, thinking back to that rushed morning, the wrong subway, and how it had led her here. Not to wealth or comfort, but to purpose and hope. Sometimes, she said, the wrong turn is exactly the one we need.